When an innocent child poses a question, it often cuts through the noise of politics, fame, or status and goes straight to the heart. This story begins with a little girl in a crowded room, clutching a microphone tightly as her wide, curious eyes fixed themselves on former President Donald Trump. In a world filled with debates and controversies, this moment was different. A candid, unscripted encounter that left everyone present deeply moved. The event was a town hall-style meeting, filled with supporters and critics alike. As the session neared its end, a moderator announced they'd take one final question. That's when the young girl raised her hand. She couldn't have been more than 8 or 9 years old, her voice trembling as she stood up. The crowd quieted, almost instantly, intrigued by what this child might ask. "Mr. Trump," she began, her voice barely audible, "do you believe in God? And does God love me?" The question hung in the air, simple yet profound. The room went silent, every eye now on the former president. For a man known for his sharp rhetoric and fiery speeches, this was a departure from the norm. His expression softened as he leaned forward, almost as if to meet the girl at her level, both literally and figuratively. Trump took a moment, a rare pause in his usual rapid-fire responses. Then, in a tone far gentler than what most were accustomed to hearing, he said, "That's a very beautiful question. And the answer is yes, yes, I believe in God. And yes, God absolutely loves you." The girl's eyes filled with tears, and she began to cry softly, overwhelmed by the sincerity in his voice. But Trump didn't stop there. He continued, addressing her and the crowd simultaneously. "You know," he said, "when we think about God, we often think about big things, about nations, about wars, about the universe. But God also cares about the small things. He cares about you, about your dreams, about your fears. God's love isn't something you have to earn. It's something you already have." The crowd, initially silent, began to murmur in approval. Some people even wiped away tears as they watched the little girl nod slowly, still emotional but clearly comforted by his words. Trump then turned back to the crowd, using the moment to share a more personal reflection. "I grew up going to church," he said. "My mother taught me about faith, and I've always believed that God has a plan for each of us. And it's moments like these, questions like yours, that remind us of what really matters. Not the politics, not the arguments, but faith, love, and kindness." The audience erupted in applause, but Trump wasn't finished. He looked back at the girl and said, "And you, young lady, are a reminder to all of us that faith isn't complicated. It's about trust. It's about love. And yes, it's about knowing that God is always there, especially for you." The little girl smiled through her tears, and Trump walked over to her, giving her a warm handshake. The moment was captured by cameras, but more importantly, it was etched into the hearts of everyone in the room. It wasn't about politics, it was about humanity. This story became an internet sensation, not because it was dramatic or flashy, but because it was real. It was a rare glimpse of vulnerability and compassion in a world that often feels divided. The little girl's simple question and Trump's heartfelt response resonated with people of all backgrounds, reminding us all of the power of faith and the importance of kindness. As the event came to a close, the little girl's family thanked Trump personally, expressing how much his words meant to their daughter. The former president smiled and said, "She didn't just ask a question. She gave all of us something to think about." This story reminds us that no matter who we are or where we come from, faith and love are universal. Sometimes it takes the courage of a child to ask a question that brings us back to what truly matters. And in moments like these, we see that even the most powerful among us are just as human as the rest of us. As the event wrapped up, people lingered, still moved by the emotional exchange. It wasn't just the little girl who had been touched. Many in the audience felt they had witnessed something rare, a moment of genuine connection that transcended politics, fame, or ideology. The room buzzed with conversation as people shared their own reflections on faith, God, and the significance of the young girl's courage. Outside the venue, reporters caught up with the little girl and her family. When asked what made her ask such a profound question, she said simply, "I wanted to know if someone as important as him believed in God, and I wanted to know if God could love someone like me." Her innocence struck a chord with everyone, listening. It reminded them of how children often see the world with a clarity that adults sometimes lose. Social media soon lit up with clips of the interaction. Some shared the story as an example of Trump's softer side, while others focused on the little girl's bravery. Regardless of perspective, one thing was clear. This moment resonated far beyond the walls of the event hall. It sparked conversations worldwide about the nature of faith, the universality of God's love, and the power of a single heartfelt question. In the days that followed, the little girl became somewhat of a symbol for hope and faith in turbulent times. People shared her story across platforms, often accompanying it with messages of their own struggles and beliefs. Some recounted how her question had reminded them to pause and reflect on their own relationship with faith, while others were inspired to have deeper conversations with their own children. Meanwhile, Trump himself addressed the moment again during another public appearance. "That little girl reminded me, and I think all of us, that faith is a foundation we can all stand on, no matter what else is happening in our lives. It's something we need to protect and nurture, especially for the next generation." His words once again resonated widely as people appreciated the sincerity he brought to the topic. But perhaps the most profound impact of the exchange was on the little girl herself. In an interview with a local news outlet, her mother shared how much the moment had meant to her daughter. "She's always been curious about God," the mother explained. "She asks a lot of questions about heaven, about whether God hears her prayers." That day, she not only got an answer, but also saw how her faith can inspire others. The little girl's story didn't end there. Her family later revealed that she had written a letter to Trump, thanking him for his words and sharing how much they meant to her. In the letter, she wrote, "I know now that God loves me, and that makes me feel very happy inside. Thank you for telling me that. It's remarkable how a single question, spoken from the heart of a child, can ripple outward and touch so many lives." This story reminds us all of the power of vulnerability, of asking the questions that truly matter, and of the universal need to feel loved and valued. Whether you believe in God, or simply believe in the power of love and kindness, moments like this have a way of uniting us, if only for a brief time. And as the little girl reminded us, faith doesn't have to be complicated. Sometimes, it's as simple as knowing you're loved. As time passed, the story of the little girl and her heartfelt question continued to inspire people across the world. Faith leaders, public figures, and everyday individuals referenced it in sermons, speeches, and personal reflections. It became a story of hope and a reminder of how even the smallest voices can have the most profound impact. The little girl's school hosted an assembly where she was honored for her courage and curiosity. Her teacher spoke about the importance of asking meaningful questions and how her moment had sparked discussions about faith and love even among the students. "You reminded us all that no matter how small you are, your voice matters," her principal told her in front of her peers, who clapped and cheered. Meanwhile, many people reached out to the family, sharing their own stories of faith and doubt, often thanking them for allowing the little girl to share such a personal part of herself with the world. Churches and community groups invited her and her family to speak, not as experts, but as a symbol of childlike wonder and faith that could inspire others. The story even inspired a charity campaign. A local non-profit organization created an initiative called Questions of the Heart, which encouraged children to ask big, meaningful questions about life, faith, and the world around them. The campaign raised money for underprivileged kids to access better education and opportunities to explore their faith and values. The little girl was made an honorary ambassador for the campaign, and her family expressed how proud they were that her moment of vulnerability was now helping other children find their voice. For Trump, the moment became a cornerstone of his public appearances. Whenever he spoke about faith or the importance of connecting with the next generation, he would recall that day with the little girl. "You don't need to have all the answers," he would say. "You just need to listen, to be open, and to show others that they matter." His response to her question became one of the most shared clips of his career, resonating with people from all walks of life. And what about the little girl? As she grew older, she carried that moment with her, not as a memory of fame, but as a deeply personal affirmation of her worth and the power of faith. Her family said that she became more confident, often reminding her friends and siblings that they too were loved and valued by God. She even started writing her own prayers and reflections, inspired by the connection she felt that day. Years later, during another public event, Trump referenced the moment again, saying, "I'll never forget that little girl. She didn't just ask me a question, she reminded me, and so many others, of what really matters. Faith, love, and the courage to ask questions that come straight from the heart." The story became more than just a viral moment. It became a symbol of hope, a reminder of the innocence and courage of children, and a call for all of us to reflect on what truly matters in life. It showed that even in a world filled with complexities and division, the simplest questions, and the honest answers that follow, can bring us together. And so, the little girl's question lives on, not just as a memory of a powerful moment, but as a testament to the power of faith, the importance of asking questions, and the unshakable truth that we are all loved. As the years passed, the story continued to ripple outward, finding its way into books, documentaries, and even classrooms as an example of the profound impact of childlike faith and curiosity. It wasn't just about politics, religion, or even the people involved. It became a universal reminder of how a single moment of sincerity can break down barriers and touch the hearts of millions. The little girl, now a teenager, often reflected on that day. In interviews and public appearances, she spoke about how the moment shaped her understanding of faith and self-worth. "I didn't expect it to become such a big thing," she admitted during one such appearance. "I just asked a question that was in my heart. But looking back, I think it's a reminder that even the smallest voice can make a difference if it comes from a place of truth." Her life became a quiet testament to the message she'd unknowingly shared with the world. She became actively involved in community work, often speaking to other children about the importance of believing in themselves and knowing they are loved. Her humility and warmth endeared her to many, and her story continued to inspire others to embrace faith and kindness in their own lives. Meanwhile, the Questions of the Heart initiative expanded into a nationwide program, helping children across the country to explore their faith, values, and aspirations. The campaign funded scholarships, built community centers, and even started a mentorship program where children could connect with positive role models. The little girl's family remained closely involved, ensuring the initiative stayed true to its original purpose. Faith leaders and educators began using the story in sermons and lessons, framing it as an example of how moments of vulnerability can lead to profound spiritual growth. "This isn't just a story about a little girl," one pastor said during a televised sermon. "It's a story about all of us. It's a reminder that we're never too small to ask big questions, and that we're never too far gone to hear the answers." The story even found its way into popular culture. A best-selling author included a fictionalized version of the moment in a novel about faith and redemption. A filmmaker created a short documentary about the ripple effects of the girl's question, interviewing people from different walks of life who had been inspired by the story. And musicians wrote songs inspired by the themes of love, faith, and the courage to ask for answers. Through all of this, the message remained the same. Love is universal, faith is powerful, and sometimes it takes the simplicity of a child's perspective to remind us of what truly matters. The little girl's question was a spark, but the fire it ignited was sustained by everyone who took the time to reflect, to connect, and to share that love with others. Even decades later, the story continued to be told, a timeless example of how one small moment can create waves of hope and unity. And whether people remembered it as the day a little girl asked a former president about God, or simply as a story of love and faith, the impact was undeniable. The little girl's life, though forever changed by that moment, remained grounded. She never sought fame or recognition for what happened that day. Instead, she used her voice and platform to encourage others to seek truth, ask meaningful questions, and never doubt their own worth. And in the end, the The story wasn't just about her or Trump. It was about all of us. It was a reminder that faith, love, and kindness are what truly connect us, no matter our differences. And that, perhaps, is the most powerful legacy of all. As time went on, the story became more than just an anecdote. It transformed into a legacy that lived in the hearts of those who heard it. For generations, the tale of the little girl's question and the heartfelt response she received continued, to inspire families, communities, and individuals searching for meaning in their own lives. The Questions of the Heart campaign grew into an international movement. It reached schools, churches, and community centers worldwide, encouraging children to express their thoughts and emotions freely. Workshops were created to teach children the value of curiosity, the strength in vulnerability, and the importance of knowing that they are loved regardless of their circumstances. Thousands of children wrote letters, shared their own questions, and learned to embrace the beauty of faith and hope. The girl's family, while deeply proud of her, remained grounded. They often reminded her that the moment was not about fame or recognition, but about the universal truth it revealed, that love and faith are powerful forces that can bring people together. Her mother once shared in an interview, "We've always taught our daughter that her voice matters. That day she showed the world that it's true no matter how young or small you are." In her adulthood, the little girl, now a young woman, chose to pursue a career in education and public speaking. She often spoke at events, sharing her story and encouraging others to find courage in their faith and strength in their questions. She told audiences, "I was just a child with a question, but that moment taught me something I carry with me every day. It's okay to wonder, to ask, and to seek. And it's even more okay to believe that you are loved, no matter what." Her words inspired countless others to explore their own beliefs and reconnect with their faith. Some who had felt distant from God or religion found new comfort in her message. Others who struggled with self-worth found hope in her reminder that love, both divine and human, is freely given, not earned. Decades later, during a special anniversary event celebrating the legacy of the moment, the young woman stood before a crowd filled with people whose lives had been touched by her story. Some had been in the original audience that day, while others had only heard about it through stories or videos. With a smile, she addressed them, her voice steady yet filled with emotion. "That day, I asked a question that came from my heart, but I had no idea how far it would reach," she began. "I've learned that faith isn't just about believing in something bigger than yourself. It's about trusting that love exists for you, no matter who you are or where you've been, and it's about sharing that love with others." The audience erupted in applause, but she wasn't done. She paused, then added, "If there's one thing I hope you take from this story, it's this. Never stop asking questions, and never stop believing in the answers that come from love. Because those answers can change the world, just like they changed mine." Her words were a fitting tribute to a story that had transcended time and touched millions of lives. What began as a simple, heartfelt question had grown into a movement of faith, hope, and unity. And as the young woman stepped off the stage, she knew that her story, now their story, would continue to inspire generations to come. In the end, it wasn't just about a little girl, a president, or a question. It was about the reminder that, no matter who we are connected by the universal truths of love, faith, and the courage to seek answers. And that is a legacy that will never fade.